Welcome to the No Regrets Leadership Podcast, where leaders are empowered to equip and disciple men.
Well, welcome to the No Regrets Leadership Podcast. My name is Steve Sonderman, and it's a real pleasure for me to be your host for today. And as you know, every week we like to talk to an author, a speaker, a key thought leader in the area of leadership, in the area of ministry to men. And I'd like to talk about the topics that are important to you that will help you to lead more effectively wherever God has you right now. And today it's really a privilege to have with us Bob Merritt. Bob and I first met probably about 40 years ago when we were in seminary together at Bethel Seminary. And we used to play a lot of basketball together, and it was a good way just to stay refreshed and to get us out of the library and out of the classroom, and had a lot of great battles together and just a lot of fun together. And from seminary, Bob went on and entered the pastorate and spent 5 years at a church in Wisconsin, and then actually went back for his another master's, and then ended up in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, just one of the suburbs of Minnesota, St. Paul, and then and with a small church. And then continued to pastor there for 29 years. And after a name change, it was called Eagle Brook Church, and went from 300 to 28,000, and just saw incredible growth over those years. And Bob just has a real heart for preaching the word, for ministering to everyone, and to seeing people come to Christ. And so what we're going to do is, about 4 years ago, he made a transition. And so we're going to talk about that and some of the things he's learned through the transition, but also the ministry that he is doing now as he works with senior leaders and helping them stay in it for the long haul. So Bob, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. I really appreciate it.
It's an honor, Steve. Thanks for that. And you reminded me that we had some contentions on the basketball court, that you threw the ball at me once or twice, and I'm sure that that was well deserved. We had some battles in that little gym over at the Sem, so thank you for that.
We did. I think I received maybe the first technical in Bethel Seminary history. I'm not sure, and like you said, maybe it was deserved, maybe it wasn't, but it was sure a fun
I'm
time.
sure it was. Yeah.
So, well, why don't we start, Bob, just with tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your family, and the ministry you've had over the years, and then we'll get into sort of what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, your introduction was very gracious. What the listeners didn't hear from you is just the enormous battles I had along the way, especially here in White Bear in the Twin Cities when I came here after another stint in school at Penn State. And I mean, first 10 years, it was a struggle, and I didn't know what I was doing. A young pastor, 34 years old, and a lot of conflict, a lot of sleepless nights, and wondering if I was going to make it. But the church was growing. We were doing some things right, a lot of things wrong, but the church was growing, and we paid attention to the preaching of the word and doing the best we could on the weekends, working on our music and children. So we just had a strategy that the weekends were everything. And that people could gain a confidence in inviting their family and friends to our weekend service, and it would make a difference in their life. And that was a very simple strategy, but we stayed with that. But 10 years into it, Steve, and I just want to start with this. I nearly lost my career there at White Bear, Eagle Brook Church. My marriage, my family was suffering, could have lost all of that as well. And part of it was I was just under such enormous stress. The pace of life was eating me up. I had agreed to do too many things, including teaching, preaching at the seminary while trying to lead this church. That almost killed me. But during that time, the church board, again, this is 10 years into leading Eagle Brook, the church board began meeting privately without me, discussing my termination. This was 10 years into my ministry here.
Wow.
And it was because of anger and harsh words and just being unable to handle the stress and pressure of ministry and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay, here's the deal. And we had a meeting one night. I'll never forget it. They said, we will not fire you if you agree to go to counseling, for a full year.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, well, I don't want to lose my job. So yeah, I'll do that. And this counselor, leadership coach, dug into my background and into who I was, and 250 pages of feedback later, he interviewed all my friends, all my family members, all my staff. He essentially asked them, what's good about Bob? What's bad about Bob? And over a 2-day period at his retreat center, read back to me word for word what people had said about me as a person and leader. And it nearly destroyed me. But I heard people saying that I was not a loving person. I was angry. I was harsh. And I just sat there and took it for 2 days straight. But that was the turning point, Steve, in my life. And had that not happened, had I not become aware of my weaknesses and tendencies, self-awareness is so important for a leader.
Yeah.
And I was totally unaware. I mean, I had leadership ability. I had a teaching gift, and God had given both of those to me, but I was completely unaware of my harsh, critical, angry side to me. And you'd think I would be aware, but I wasn't. And it took this year-long intervention in my life. Now, pushing forward to getting to your question, what am I doing now? So I survived.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, I appreciate your sharing that with us. I really do. That's being very vulnerable, and I know leaders appreciate that. I had a similar situation 7 years into mine where I almost lost my family, and again, it was going to the counseling and 3 hard years of work. And I guess what I'd like to ask is, what did you then? Okay, the self-awareness, the coach talking to you. Then what were some of the steps to move forward? What did you have to do to sort of deal with that then once you were self-aware of it?
I mean, the first thing is to become aware that, and actually to believe that this is a problem. And so I asked the counselor, I said, my greatest fear, will I be able to change?
Yeah.
And what he said about 40% of the people I work with have an ability, they have an ability to change. They find the keys, like you're asking, what were the keys, the steps that I took. But he said the number one factor in your ability to change is going to be humility. Will you be humble enough to look at your problems, own it, and just basically agree that this is a problem and you're going to repent of that?
Yeah.
He said the people he works with, mainly men that don't make it, that continue on in their harsh, angry, failing ways, are those who are arrogant. They take the feedback, they blow it off, they don't own it, they think I'm above this, and they just keep plowing forward. So I was broken, and I had the humility piece, and one of the things I did was I asked my closest leaders, I said, here's the feedback, here's what happened in my life. I'm going to ask you to help me. I want to be transparent with this, and I was. I laid myself open. I just said, and that was so important. I wanted them to see, okay, and I apologize, and I'm so sorry. I was, that I behaved so badly. Will you help me? And so they did. And I said, stop me. If you see some of these behaviors manifest, stop me and confront me. You do it in a loving manner. Don't tear me apart. Right. Do it in a loving manner, in the right way, right time. And that was probably the biggest factor, Steve, I shared it with other people. I shared it with my wife, shared it with my family. So I shared the data with as many people as I was affecting. And that was huge because now they knew that I knew, and I was transparent, and they could help me because I wasn't going to dig out of this myself.
Yeah.
So that was extremely important.
There's so
step
much
number one.
There's so much freedom in that, isn't there? I mean, you just feel that you just feel free because now
you're scared to death of it.
Totally.
Who wants to go to a counselor and have them dig around in your life? You're just scared to see what the ugliness they're going to find.
Yeah.
And then to become open with it. But again, I was failing. I was angry. I was exhausted. And it was no way to live. So, this confrontation in my life, as hard as it was the moment that my life started to have meaning and freedom, peace, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So,
I appreciate your sharing that. And so then, so you continue on, and obviously you made some change. What type of changes did you have to make, or after that? Was there anything that, or was it more just the personal who you were?
Yeah, in terms of what changes I had to make in my leadership. Number one, I resigned teaching at Bethel. My counselor looked at my schedule. He said, "I want you to write down what you do, what your schedule is." He said, "I'm surprised you're still standing." He said, "You have to resign today from doing this outside teaching on the side, Bethel Seminary." And, I was doing it for a couple of reasons. One, I was just financially strapped, and our kids were starting to go to school, and we had no money to do that. That was one. But I also had this degree from Penn State in speech communication. I wanted to utilize that, and I was a good teacher, and the seminary needed my help. And I thought, well, this is a win-win, but it was killing me, Steve. And when he said, "You need to resign," I said, "Can I do that? Is that legal?" I just needed permission.
Yeah.
So that was one that I tell you, I can't overemphasize how important it was for me to say no.
Yeah. Well, there's so much you feel shame in that because you were a sort of a BGC guy, right? Everyone knew you and you grew up in that and you were the guy. And now to say I can't do it all was, it's sure extremely hard. Yeah.
So that began a pattern of saying no to a lot of things. And so I really tightened my calendar. I tightened, essentially eliminated everything I could outside of, my weekly preparation and teaching at church and just my leadership there.
Yeah.
I decided that, hey, if I lose my marriage or my family, or if I lose this church, nothing's worth that.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing is worth that.
No.
And eventually, so it was really streamlining my life and saying no. And by the way, I'll use this phrase, I had to learn how to disappoint people and and be okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I even said no to you a couple of years ago. I was still in the mess of leadership and trying to succession planning and all that. And I needed to decline your request. I never did podcasts. I never did anything like this because I was so consumed by the one thing that mattered most.
Yeah. Well, and don't worry, we will invite you again. But I think, again, what you're talking about is that idea of self-aware. You were self-aware to know what you could do with all that you had and what you just couldn't. And I think one of the hardest things is saying no. And we need to do that as leaders to make sure we focus on what's most important. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I think if you were to ask me, Steve, what was another thing that I began to learn about leadership that enabled me to continue and take it to the next level, it's just this whole idea of an ability to endure painful seasons. And I'll say it this way. I think I think a leader's ability to endure pain, will really determine how far they can go as a leader in many ways.
Yeah.
Because leadership is painful.
Yeah.
And leadership is extremely challenging. All it takes is a sideways email for a criticism that you get, and it can stick in your spirit for a day or two.
Yeah.
And a leader has to be able to absorb that and just hang in there and outlast them, if you will. So this whole idea of persevering through pain, there's a lot of that. So if you're a leader listening to this and you're going through a painful season or a few days, I mean, that's just leadership. And you've got to have enough. Here's another thing along with that. You've got to have enough people in your life who love you and are in your corner to help you get through those painful moments. Because that's just part of the leadership landscape, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah.
How many times have you wanted to impact your world for Christ, but struggled to take the first step? Well, you are not alone. Our latest resource, Disciple Maker 101, is designed to help you become a disciple who makes disciples. This self-paced online course will provide you with practical tools to help you identify men in your sphere of influence, equip you to share your faith story, and practical tips to invest in the life of others by leading a small group. To become a disciple maker, visit noregretsmen.org. Again, that's noregretsmen.org, and click on Become a Disciple Maker.
Let's go back to our seminary days. That was not ever one of the titles of our class. Leadership is painful, right? I mean, we didn't hear that. I didn't hear that lecture. Maybe it was taught somewhere, but it is. It's just sort of one painful thing after another, and people will disappoint you, and they will say things and do things that just hurt to the core. So you've endured, we both have endured, a lot of people have endured painful times in leadership. It's not a surprise, it's expected. One of the things you said that was helpful was making sure you have the right people in your corner. Surround yourself with people that love you, that are there for you, will encourage you. Bob, what else has helped you to endure those painful times of leadership?
Before we'll go on to that, I want to say this for your listeners, Steve, that one of the things I did 25 years ago that saved my life through all of this, through my entire leadership life. I heard a speaker say 25, 30 years ago, one of the best things you all can do as a leader is ask 3 or so other leaders who are ahead of you. They're ahead of you in their leadership. They might be older than you probably are. They're more accomplished. They've been down the road a while. They're ahead of you in several categories. Tap them on the shoulder and ask them if they will meet with you once a month. Not a Bible study. It's just, hey, can we talk about life and leadership and the pressures and the pains and the challenges that we all have? And will you just build into me? And these were CEO type guys that I tapped on the shoulder in our church. And I was intimidated by these guys.
Yeah.
And I thought they don't want to, but they were honored to be asked. And I can tell you, people like Al Holland, Terry Shepard, Dean Hager, they saved me. They saved me. It took 2 or 3 years for us to kind of get to know each other enough to trust each other and share real life with each other. And I'm telling you, 5 years later, 10 years later, these guys, they saved me in a board meeting or a challenge that I couldn't have handled by myself. But those relationships, Steve, were built long before. And I'm just saying to your listeners, man, if you don't have people who are ahead of you, who are in your corner, they'll take a bullet for you. They will go to war with you. You're at risk if you don't have those guys in your life.
Yeah, I love it. That's pure gold. Because I think as I talk about it, I call it mentors, but different words for it, but just to have those guys that you can go to that have your back, that sort of put wings on you and say, we want you to fly. We want the best for you. And we all need that, and sort of to build a constellation of those guys around you who might have different strengths that you can go to for different things. But yeah, I would agree. I would just double down on that and encourage every leader to find those people in your life.
So then you asked me what else have I done?
Yeah.
It really is, for me, it's been around the humility piece.
Mm.
And what I want to say about that is I am a constant learner. If I turn my video around here in my office, you'd see my wall constantly reading books. Just finished The Second Mountain by David Brooks. David Brooks is a New York Times bestseller and columnist. Just an outstanding book, The Second Mountain. Erwin McManus, his book Mind Shift, phenomenal book. Ed Milet, The Power of One More, really solid book. Don't Look Back by Christine Kane. All of these books I've been reading just recently. I read everything that Kyle Edelman writes, Craig Rochelle, Andy Stanley. I read them all, and I'm puzzled. I'm more than puzzled. I'm bothered when I talk to men or women, doesn't matter. What are you reading these days? Oh, I don't really like to read. I mean, I don't get that.
No.
If you're not reading, why? Is it because you don't you're not interested in learning or growing, or is it just an arrogant thing? And I'm not sure what it is, Steve, sometimes, but I just can't stop learning and reading because I need to keep growing, right? And so,
I think it was maybe Hybels, maybe it was Rick Warren, but they said when you stop reading, when you stop learning, you stop leading. And who said it at first, I'm not sure, but I would agree. I just preach that all the time. It's one of my mantras. And
honestly, I have to be careful about how much time I spend with people who are not still growing, learning, reading.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm like, okay, if you're not going to bring anything new to the party, I need to be careful about spending a lot of time with you.
Yeah.
I need to be around people who are going to continue to build into me and me into them. But I have a responsibility to make sure I'm still reading, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, so that I can contribute to your life.
Right. Yeah. I just read an article just yesterday on Warren Buffett, and he said he spends 80% of his time reading.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
In his study. And here's a man who's, obviously been very successful and leads a pretty big organization, but he is staying on top of things, and he wants to understand culture and business and, life and things. And so I think you will see when you look at a lot of leaders, that's really one of the things they've done.
Yeah.
They've continued to read and to grow and to mature.
Yeah. So let me ask a question for you. No, I didn't say that right. Let me be you and ask me a question I want to answer.
Okay.
I think you asked me earlier, what am I doing now? And, how's that going?
Yeah.
All of what, huh?
Yeah, I did. It was a while ago, but that's okay. This has been phenomenal. This is great stuff.
So
and
all the stuff we've talked about has brought me to where I am now. And I'll just tee it up by saying this, that when I stepped down from Eagle Brook 4 years ago, that was a big deal. And I experienced a lot of loss, just searching. It took me a full year really to recover. So I slept a lot and sat on my back deck with coffee a lot, reflected, read constantly, and just asking God what's next. But I was so tired. I was so weary, man. And I just needed to rest and be quiet So I'd been drinking a fire hose for 29 years, and I just I needed my body to heal and my soul to heal. So I did, about a year. I didn't want to speak, didn't want to write, didn't want to do anything. About a year into it, I felt a spark. And from that spark, the flame kind of reignited. And so what I've discovered about retirement, for those guys out there who are nearing that or wondering about that or maybe into it, I still need a purpose. Two things I think every human being needs is they need to be loved. They need intimacy. They need to be in relationship, and they need to have a meaningful purpose. And so something that drives them, gets them out of bed, gets them excited. So I can't golf 5 days a week. I love golf, but I'm not, it's not purposeful.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Gets me out. Huh?
Pickleball.
No, that's not going to happen.
I know.
I don't mind people who do it, but I'm not a pickleball guy.
No, me either.
Yeah. So, so what I did was I looked at, okay, where have I been in life? What experiences do I have? Where am I gifted? Where am I passionate? And it really still goes back to teaching and being in the church world and mentoring other pastors. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. It's been organic at this point, just kind of, requests will come and I'll look at them and respond. And it's been really rich. And so I'm fanning that flame, really walking alongside of younger pastors who are in their 40s or so. They've had some success or whatever, and their church has some scale. But they've reached a challenge. It could be financial, it could be conflict, it could be just personal exhaustion. And they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to manage through it. And so I've been there, seen all of that. And so it's been really, really rewarding to just build into some of these guys. That's what I've been doing.
Right. That's fabulous. Because you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing the same thing, Bob, is I see so many of my friends, and I sometimes I just get frustrated because they retire and they just go to Florida and they sip margaritas on the beach or just hit the golf
chair.
And they have so much to offer, so many experiences, relationships, so much wisdom and to offer. And I'm not saying they have to do it 55 hours a week still, but we just it's helping them discover that purpose after they've worked their entire life. And I just think we have to provide a vision for them of what they could do. How have you helped others your age? We're both 66. How have you helped other guys in your circle to sort of discover what you've discovered?
I'm fairly transparent about it, and I'll verbally challenge people, and I'll share with them what I'm doing, and then I'll just go into a little sermon, if you will, and say, what are you doing? Here's a book I'm reading. Read it. Get after it. Do something, because I think fulfillment and joy is on the other side of service. You can't escape it. And so if you're just sitting in a beach chair sleeping, that's fine. I get it. There's a place and time for that, but that's empty. And I think there's a lot of sad retired people, sad and empty retired people, because they've given up on this whole idea of, hey, I could do something. I could assist somebody who's behind me, whatever it might be, a volunteer thing or whatever. It could be anything. Right. But man, just to sit or to play golf 6 days a week, that to me, that's not life. That's boredom. Yeah. It's empty. It really is. And so I pound that drum. Joy and fulfillment is on the other side of service and sacrifice. There really is.
Yeah, I love that little phrase. That's great. So helpful. And really, Well, listen, our time is up. This has gone by so fast. It's been so great. I really just
Happy to do it.
appreciate your sharing your heart with everyone, and some of the pain you've been through, some of the things you've learned, talking about pain as leadership, and getting some people around you that you can be honest with and that'll walk with you. So,
Yeah.
Bob, I really appreciate what you're doing now.
Yeah, you're welcome, Steve. Hey, could I just leave a website for your listeners?
Yes. I was going to say, just working.
Simply bobmerritt.com. Bobmerritt.com, and it'll come up, and people can see what I'm doing and access my my help if they want.
And then we'll put that in the show notes as well. Perfect. And make sure that everyone can access that and go see and learn. And there might be some young guys out there that need someone to talk to, like yourself. And
be happy to.
Hopefully that comes out of this as well. So, all right. Well, listen, everyone listening, on behalf of Bob and myself, we want to thank you for taking time today to listen to a couple old time guys who went to seminary together and have been in the trenches ministering for the last almost 40 years. And we're grateful for your listening. And if you've been encouraged by this, we want to encourage you to share it with others, share it with your leadership team, share it with the guys that you're ministering with. And I know they will be encouraged by the things that Bob shared with us today. So thanks for listening, guys, and we look forward to talking with you next week.
Thank you for joining the No Regrets Leadership Podcast. For more information and to access past recordings, please visit www.noregretsmen.org/podcast.
Life Camp USA is a nonprofit organization that mentors young men who have lost a father due to military or law enforcement service. Life Camp USA provides an all-expenses-paid, week-long, world-class camp experience that inspires, equips, and navigates these fatherless young men through some of life's toughest moments. Life Camp USA's mentors serve grieving families by helping these sons establish healthy identities, values, character, and goals without the crucial aid of a father in their life. To learn more about Life Camp's mission, visit lifecampusa.org. Again, that's lifecampusa.org.